What family tradition did you realize was actually illegal? In my family, girls were married off the moment they got their first period. Didn't matter if you were 12, 13, or 14. The blood meant you were ready for a husband at least 3 times your age. I grew up with this idea, so in my head it didn't seem that bad until I turned 11, because that's when I watched my cousin Miriam get promised to a 43-year-old man just 3 days after her first period. His previous 2 wives had died before turning 20. That was the first night I decided to stop eating enough food. Not because I was fat, and not because I hated food, but because I noticed the skinnier girls in my family would be the last ones to get their period, and I knew it was my only option. I later learned that your body actually needs to have enough fat before starting puberty, lol. The other girls called me skeleton, but I didn't care. Other girls my age were already promised to men who had children older than them. That didn't mean they stopped prepping me to be a wife though. Every Friday from 1 a.m. to 10 a.m. I was made to serve meals to male family members for hours without speaking. And of course, if I made eye contact or noise while serving, then I would receive 10 lashes of the belt. I was forced to hold burning pots without oven mitts to toughen up soft hands for kitchen work. And every night my mom put skin whitening cream all over my face so I could be beautiful. And other than the secret starvation, I was the perfect daughter. I played the part with 0 complaints and always talked about how excited I was to have kids. But when I was 14 and still periodless, I found something that changed everything. For context, we were in the USA the whole time, lol. My mom had just convinced us that all of this was normal and that any girl who didn't do this was bound to die alone, as well as being ugly and useless. Until one teacher forced me to have a meeting with her because I had accidentally worn a t-shirt to school and she saw how skinny I was. When she walked out to go to the bathroom, she had forgotten to lock her drawer. Inside were books about marriage laws, pamphlets with titles like Your Rights as a Young Teenager and When Culture Becomes Crime. As I read, my jaw dropped. It was the first time I had been introduced to the idea that marriage under 18 was wrong. No cultural exceptions, no parental consent loopholes. I stole the thinnest pamphlet, hiding it in my waistband. Over the next few weeks, when my parents thought I was asleep, I memorized every page. Phone numbers for CPS, shelter addresses, the exact words that would trigger a mandatory report. I learned that teachers, counselors, and doctors had to report suspected abuse by law. So I started a wife skills group in my uncle's tool shed. 6 younger cousins who hadn't bled yet, all desperate to avoid their fate. There, I taught them what I'd learned, which teachers were mandated reporters, how to say the words that would trigger an investigation. We practiced in whispers. They're forcing me to marry. I'm only 13. Please help. And at 15, my body betrayed me. The blood came during morning food prep, soaking through my white dress. My mother's scream of joy brought every woman in the house running. They were practically beaming with joy, kissed my cheeks, told me I was lucky. By nightfall, my father had already chosen my husband, Hamoud Habibi, a construction mogul who'd buried 2 of his wives once they turned 23. Kidney failure, the death certificate said. The women whispered it was from too many pregnancies too young. 2 days later, my cousin Anya, a girl from the shed, got her period too. Within hours, she was promised to a 51-year-old who collected wives like trophies, who had 8 children older than her. I watched the light drain from her eyes as they discussed her bride price like she was livestock. That night, I slipped her my notebook. Every shelter number, every legal fact, every escape route I'd memorized. Tomorrow, I whispered, tell the science teacher, use the exact words I taught you. Her hands shook as she took it. What about you? My wedding's not for 2 weeks. I'll figure something out, I responded, voice shaking. But I was wrong, because that night, there was a knock at the door. It was CPS. My father's face went from confusion to fury as they asked about Anya, about underage brides, about forced marriages. They needed to speak to all the girls in the family under 18. The moment they left, the family circled like wolves. In their eyes, someone had been teaching the girls lies. Someone had poisoned their innocent minds with Western propaganda. They turned the house upside down, looking for the culprit. Well, my journal was found hidden in the tool shed within an hour, and it was filled with phone numbers and legal statutes. My father burned it in front of everyone while calling me diseased, contaminated, and, my personal favorite, a cancer that needed to be cut out. The wedding is tomorrow, he announced, before she destroys anyone else. Dawn came too fast. In an hour, they would come to dress me in red and gold to deliver me to a man who'd unalived 2 girls already. Full story on channel, link below.